Well, the Prime Minister's also been out campaigning today, accusing the SNP and Labour of considering a so-called toxic alliance after the general election. Well, let's discuss that a little bit more. With me are two commentators on the situation here in Scotland. They are McAlpine, the founder of Weal, which some people believe kicked off the recent boom in the support for the SNP, and Macleod, former advisor to Alistair Darling in the Better Together campaign. Welcome to you both. People are talking about a phenomenon, a massive swing change in public opinion in a Westminster election. What do you think is happening here in Scotland?
I think it's fairly straightforward. All across the UK there is deep cynicism about Westminster, and the difference in Scotland is that there's a positive alternative. So people in England, if they feel let down by the big parties, they feel let down by Westminster, there's nowhere where the Greens are strong enough to make that kind of shift really positive, and the rest of it's UKIP, which isn't a good option for a lot of people. So what I think you're finding in Scotland is that we want a different politics, and right now there's a vehicle for it. The SNP are offering that, and people are moving there in droves.
Catherine, you know Westminster well, you've been a political editor down there. Do you think that's what's happening?
I think it is. I think that Robin is right. I think that people are very disillusioned with Westminster, that they've never really known what Scottish MPs have done at Westminster. They've been very bad at selling themselves in the Scottish media. And I think this shift, it's certainly not the media's fault, but the shift of the Scottish media moved to Holyrood rather than Westminster. Tony Blair got in '97 with a huge majority, so there was no sort of fight in Westminster. This legislation was going through, it went through kind of on the nod, so people didn't know that there had been, you know, increases in tax credits, increases in childcare, increases in pensions, and it was largely unreported. There was also another very important thing, is that whenever the Scottish Parliament was founded, that a lot of politics in Scotland was seen through the prism of the Constitution, and ordinary politics, if you like, got lost.
So, ironically, that might mean that national identity, a separate Scottish national identity, is not so important in this movement.
No, it's not. I mean, one of the things which was quite remarkable about the independence movement was the number of people involved in it who were English or would describe themselves as anti-nationalist. The Greens, there were few in the Green Party who would describe themselves as nationalist. This was about different politics. A sense that after 40 years since Thatcher arrived, Westminster never reformed itself. It didn't change. And people just started to look and say, what's the vehicle that's going to make this happen? Now, a lot of people started to believe that independence was the only option. But now that we're not independent, what they're saying is, OK, but we still meant what we said about a better country, a fairer country, a more decent politics, and this is the way that we think we can engage with it.
Where did Labour go wrong? Because they were extremely dominant here for a long period of time after we had a Scottish UK Prime Minister.
Yeah, I think Robin's wrong. I think Westminster changed quite radically. I think that people perhaps didn't know how much it had changed. I think that it's ludicrous to say that nationalism has got nothing to do with it. If all these people wanted the Labour Party to reform, they should have got into the Labour Party and changed the Labour Party and, you know, made the Labour Party more enthusiastic, but they accepted devolution, which was delivered by the Labour Party, and all the other things that were delivered by the Labour Party. So I do not know how anybody can say that nationalism is not one of the dividing lines between people in the Labour Party and people in the Scottish National Party. And the people in the Labour Party have worked very hard to make the world, the whole of the United Kingdom, more favourable. I mean, what we've got in the moment in the SNP, and everyone is absolutely entitled to vote SNP if they want, is that they're selling the myth of this is a more left-wing government, a fairer government. This is not a progressive government in Scotland. The redistribution of wealth in Scotland at the moment is from the poor to the rich. There's universal benefits for people going to university. More disadvantaged students in England go to university than in Scotland. So universal benefits are fine if we've got a bottomless purse, but we don't have that on either side of the border, and in the UK people are trying to redistribute money in favour of the poor.
What would you say to that? Not a progressive government.
5 years of that argument and Labour's dying in Scotland. It's okay to say it. It's okay to say it. Nobody believes it.
But it's true. Well, look at the facts. I mean, Shirley Williams got a letter in the Times today saying that class sizes are getting bigger, not smaller, that the NHS in Scotland is in difficulties, that every council in Scotland, every health board in Scotland is complaining.
I'm just going to let Robin reply to that. I mean, is it perhaps that there's a romance about this which isn't borne out by the reality?
Oh, politics is never borne out by its reality. Politics is always about offering more than you ever actually get. And I'm not unrealistic about the fact that the SNP is not some sort of socialist utopia for Britain. It's just better than everything else we've got.
Okay.
And it's an honest party that's standing for what it really believes in. And
Thank you both very much indeed.